episode 5 is entitled Loss Runs and Their Impact on Your Firm. And so loss runs, I'll get into the definition, but they typically are confusing. I get a lot of questions from clients wanting to know, why are they being asked to produce this? What do they mean? What is the information contained therein? And then when we look at it, we see that they're also, difficult to disseminate the information. So what I hope to do today is just give you a couple of versions of a loss run so you can see what they look like. You can understand the information that is contained therein, and you can hopefully make it easier in your firm to understand those when they're asked. So we'll go ahead and begin with just our basic definition of a loss run report. So a loss run report it provides a summary of a law firm's malpractice insurance claims history, including the types of claims filed in the past, the frequency and severity of past claims filed, and related costs. This data is used by insurers to help figure out how risky a firm is to insure and how much premium should be charged to that firm. So I want to just spend a moment here to say that frequency and severity, those are two classifications of a claim of a loss run report. So when a carrier is looking at a report, that's what they're looking for. There are two ends of the spectrum. So there's a severity issue wherein a claim is very expensive. So a firm could show one claim in 5 years, but that claim was $700,000. That would be considered severe, and that's not good. And the second end of the spectrum, or the other end, is frequency. So a firm could also show not a lot of money paid out by a carrier, but multiple claims that had zero paid out or that were very little paid out. And that's also a bad thing for a firm because it shows that the firm, while maybe a lot of money has been paid out, maybe the firm isn't being well managed, or maybe something else is going on, that all these little things are being reported that could be a claim but aren't. So both of those are kind of flags to an underwriter. Sorry about that. I think I got it shared. Sorry. Okay, so here we go. I didn't share that, forgive me, but now I hope you can all see the screen. So anyway, that's the two classifications in a loss run report. And the other component that a loss run report shows, so it will show number of claims or frequency, total amount or severity. It will also break costs down between loss or indemnity paid out to a claimant. So that's money that's paid to the claimant. And the second component is expense cost or defense cost. So those are the two classifications of payout from a carrier, and those are broken down on loss run reports. So an underwriter can interpret that and understand a little bit about the claim. And the second thing I want you to know about a loss run report is there is no standard format, but the information is the same on every report. So it will contain the same information to be evaluated by an underwriter, even though the reports look very different, which we'll see. So I'm going to go to the second slide, which is key elements of a loss run report. And here they are. So every loss run report will contain the name of the insured, the name of the claimant, name of carrier, line of business, policy period, date of loss, which is the date it's reported to the carrier, not the date it happened to your firm, but the date reported to the carrier, defense cost, and loss amounts, and total cost, and then current status, whether that claim is open and still generating some activity or whether it is closed. So those are the elements that you'll find in each of the loss run reports. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 3 loss run reports to give you 3 examples, and I'm going to explain what each of those loss runs demonstrate or show. So let's take a look at the first one. And this is from Hudson Insurance Group. So this is a typical loss run report. And when you look at it, you can see it has a lot of information. It can be a little bit daunting to try to figure out what this means. So what I want to do is walk you through this one and make it very simple for you to see what the information is and what it could mean. So here we are at Hudson Insurance Group, and then that's the carrier or the holding company or the major company, but the actual carrier is Hudson Specialty. So what you can see here, you look at this first column or this section up top, and you'll see it contains the party name. And if you look down, the party name is Smith, and it will show the party type, which is claimant. And if you look over to the second, you'll see that it's received date. The date the claim was received was June 13th. The claim status is closed. And then if you look over here, you'll see insurance carrier, Hudson Direct, claim type, direct claim, and so on. So that is that key information that all of the reports will show. And if you look down here, you'll also see different information. So, okay, that's just telling you the basics. Okay, and what you see here is three, I don't want to say brackets, but distinct breaks. So this first one is one claim, and the second is another claim, another policy period, and the third is another. So this report breaks it down into each claim. So each one of these sections is talking about a different claim. So the first claim that we see was Smith is the claimant. It's made against Krause Church, Kentner and Game, which, by the way, this is all, redacted. These are not real names or real firms or claimants, but the layout is accurate. And here's what you'll see. This is what I mentioned before. The breakdown is loss and expense. So this first section is loss. And what that's showing is what was paid to a claimant related to this claim. The second section is the actual defense costs paid on behalf of this claim. So those are the two amounts. And then if you come down, you'll see that on the next claim, similarly, that will demonstrate loss here on this one where I'm moving my cursor. And here is expense, and then the total, and so on. And then down here is the total on the loss report. So 24,003 claims is not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So this is how it breaks down. And I want to tell you, I want to describe something here that you don't see on all reports. It's reserve. And I just want to explain what that means. I get that question a lot. Reserve refers to the amount the carrier foresees the claim costing them. So when they receive a claim, they'll evaluate it and they'll decide, well, we think this amount will be spent on defense cost and this amount will be spent on loss, and they'll assign a value. So that's what reserve is. But not all reports show a reserve amount. And candidly, I don't like them because it's just one person's formula, estimate, guesstimate of what it will be. And if the claim has just been reported and an underwriter, a claims adjuster assigns a high loss reserve amount, that can hurt a firm before anything has actually happened, right? Because it's showing we anticipate this costing us a lot. And if you're trying to be evaluated for coverage and premium is being considered, that would be factored in. So I like the ones that don't show it. Not all do, but some do. And that's what a reserve is. A reserve amount is what the carrier believes that class, either loss or expense, will cost them. So that's important to know there. Okay, so this is one type of loss run, and I'm going to move on to a second type. And this looks very different, but believe it or not, it contains the same key information that I showed you on the earlier slide. So this is, the carrier is Admiral Insurance Company. The insured is Krause Church, Kentner and Game. And see, in this one, they give our agency lawyers choices identified. Usually that's not identified on a loss run report. So it's kind of, you'll see a lot of extraneous information from different carriers, but when you boil it down, those, 10 pieces of information are found on everything. So, okay, here you see carrier name. And here what they've done is instead of doing a line item, they've done these columns and describe it. So the policy effective date is, 8/1 on this one, or if we go drop down to the second claim here, second year, policy effective date 8/1 to 8/19. This claimant name is IP client. The status is closed. The claim was opened on October 15th of 18. and it closed on September 13th of 19. And you see this is the product type, it's LPL, total indemnity. Indemnity is loss, that amount that goes to the claimant, and then defense. So again, as if you look at the contrast, like look at what that looks like. And if you look at this, a much simpler version, but also provides the same information. So it's interesting because when you get a lot of these, they look very confusing, but really they're very simple when you boil it down. So again, this information provides the underwriter reviewing your file with information that helps them evaluate and decide on a premium for your firm. So this is why it's very important. And then we'll go to the third version, again, another version of a loss run report. This is from AmTrust. And here's on this one, you can see the carrier, AmTrust, right here, Krause, Church, Kentner, and Game, the firm. And then they do it a third different way. And you can see 10 different ways. I've seen, 15 different ways a loss run report works depending on the carrier. So here's the claimant. The claimant's up here in this descriptive column, and then you come down, it's Smith Family Trust. The policy effective date, you can see it's 8/1/2018 to 8/1/2019. The insured here, Krause, Church, Kentner, and Game. Cancel date, there's no information there because it wasn't canceled. So that's good to know. And then up here you can see the date of loss, that's what DOL means, is here. The close date is here. So it doesn't say closed yes or no, or closed or open. It just shows closed date. And if there's information, you know it's closed. And if there's no information, that would indicate that this claim was still open. And then you go over here. And interestingly, this loss run report will tell you the adjuster. Most don't include that information. So again, extraneous, but when you go back to the basics, we come over here and we see those same, this one will mention a reserve. This is your loss column, your expense column, and a total. So in this situation, this firm had, 2 claims within, the 5-year window, but they were 0. So they didn't amount to anything. And, that's a pretty favorable loss run report. So let me just go back and I want to show you that first one and talk about that a bit. So what does it mean if you see money spent on defense costs, right? And let's say defense cost here incurred, where my pointer is, it's 1131487, and loss. And if you see this situation here where 18,000 was paid in loss, a small amount in defense costs, what that means to an underwriter is the claim had merit. It wasn't a high value claim. There was no really discrepancy that it was the claim had merit because very little was spent in defense costs. So when you see this, it was a small mistake. It was easily paid out and quickly dealt with. If you were to see here, conversely, on loss, let's say you saw 0 in loss, but perhaps 15,000 or 20,000 in defense costs, that would tell you that the claim really had no merit, but there was some money spent defending it on behalf of the insured. So the numbers really do kind of tell a story without knowing the details of a claim. And that's what you need to know when you look at it. What does your loss run report say about you? So that's really how to read that. And I'm going to jump down to this last one again. So again, and I want to point out that here's an example of 0 loss, 0 payout. And there's 2. If you can imagine in, say, 5 years, you had 10 of these. That's a situation of frequency that an underwriter would probably deem this firm as riskier than an average firm. And that might cause concern. Whether or not it would really produce a very large increase in rate is dependent on the carrier's underwriting guidelines, but it is something that you should know would probably raise a few questions. I also want to mention here that these could have been potential claims. And this is a question I get a lot. So I'll have a client who wants to report something to a carrier as a potential claim. And they will reported, and then on the loss run report, it gets classified as a claim, right? It's this claim number, claimant. It doesn't say potential. And that is concerning to most people. But from the way this reads, an underwriter can tell this was likely a potential claim because there was no money spent. It closed out, you know, they left it open for 2 years in this case, and it closed out with no money. So they can glean that information from the way the information is presented on a loss run report without it being identified as a potential claim. So just know that when you report a potential claim to a carrier, they will put it on their loss run report as a claim, but the numbers will reflect whether or not it had any real merit. So just know that that's a little bit scary when people see that. So favorable information on a loss run report would be few claims, no loss payout, low claims expense, and it's closed. That's favorable. An unfavorable loss run report would show multiple claims or a severe claim, a high payout, and that it's still open. And open means that money is still being spent on that claim. So somebody reviewing your file doesn't really know how much it's going to cost, other than maybe what the loss reserves reveal. And that will put you in a riskier class, and that can increase your premium. So I also want to mention that most carriers only want 5 years worth of loss runs history on a firm. And so what that means is if you get a report that shows more than 5 years, you know, when you get a report, you want to look at that and you want to make sure that you're not sending too much information to a carrier. So sometimes a loss run report will show 8 to 10 years worth of information. You would want to redact that and only send 5. So be real careful about that. And I also want to encourage you to look at these when you get them carefully, because the information may be inaccurate and you can dispute that and ask the carrier correct or update a report. So an example would be, what if a claim has closed out, but it hasn't been updated on the loss run report? That would help produce a more favorable premium for the firm. So you would want to have that corrected and make sure it's known to all that review it that that claim is closed. And so you can ask that be done by your carrier. And then finally, this is interesting. Most of the time, loss runs historically were only requested if a firm indicated that they had a claim on their application. Then a carrier would respond with, well, we want to see loss runs. But unlike auto or homeowners insurance, loss run reports for malpractice insurance do not have a central reporting place that they can, that an underwriter or carrier can look at to get a history on a firm. So because of that, they need to ask for individual reports on an ad hoc basis. And typically in the past, they would, as I said, only ask for that when a claim was indicated. But because there's no way to confirm that, they now, and carriers have gotten more conservative for sure in the past couple of years, they ask it from everybody pretty much. So don't be concerned if a carrier says we want to see your loss run report. It's pretty much standard operating procedure right now. And that's why, because there's no other way for them to really confirm that a firm does or doesn't have claims without asking for that. Is there anything else? No, that's it. I think I've covered all the points. So again, let me just give you a quick summary here before we go to questions. So again, this is the elements of a loss run report: the named insured, name of claimant, carrier, type of policy, policy period, date of loss, defense, loss, total, and current status. These are really the only things underwriters care about. So that's what you should look for in your loss run report when you're looking at them. And again, they can look very different. Just want to make sure you understand that, but inherently they're really the same. So that is loss run report in a nutshell. I hope it hasn't been too confusing. If it has been, please, you're welcome to follow up, email, or ask me questions. I'm happy to address those. And of course, we do have time now to take a few questions. So I'll stop my screen share and make myself available. If you have any questions, you're welcome to just type them in at the bottom of your screen where it says chat, and we'll receive them and we'll answer. A reminder, you're anonymous, so we won't know who's asking questions.
We do have a few questions here. So our first one, how many claims are acceptable to a carrier in the 5-year period?
So ideally, no claims, that's most acceptable, but it really depends on the carrier. So this kind of, we sidestep into discussing underwriting appetite. Some carriers have a threshold. If there's claims, they prefer frequency over severity. So they're okay with multiple claims that are zero. Um, and so they'd be fine with that. Whereas other carriers actually, believe it or not, they prefer if just one claim, a severe claim doesn't bother them, they'll happily offer you terms. They are more troubled or more concerned with multiple claims. So it really depends on the underwriting. So there's no perfect way. I mean, the best loss run report is zero claims, no money spent. But from what I've seen in doing this 20 plus years, I think most carriers are comfortable with a few small matters that are closed. As soon as something is open, they are going to have a problem with that because you don't know where the cost will go. So it becomes difficult for them to offer a good rate, a good premium, a lower one. So, so yeah, ideally, you know, none. Second to that would be a few that don't cost a lot and that are closed.
Can we switch carriers if we have an open claim?
Yes, you can, but I wouldn't advise it. Most carriers will not be interested in providing a competitive rate to a client who has, or to a firm that has an open claim in progress. And typically, the carrier that you're with, your incumbent, who, if they're offering you a premium, a renewal quote, and they're not non-renewing you, that's going to be your most favorable option because that carrier already has a loss, a premium to loss ratio that's favorable, right? They've collected some premium from you and now they're paying out the claim, whereas the competing carrier doesn't have any of that. So they're not going to be able to offer as much of a competitive premium as your incumbent. So typically your incumbent's always going to offer you the best terms in the event of a claim. So you're going to want to stay there. And secondarily, they also when when providing the claim coverage, okay, here's what I want to say. When you, if you take your information and you share it with carriers, when you're in the middle of an open claim to see if you can't get something better. Let's say you have a claim reported, it's open, you get your renewal terms that next year, the first year after the claim from your carrier, and it's a little bit more. And you think, well, maybe I can get better elsewhere. You likely won't, but what you will do is sort of poison the pool because now you're sharing your bad, dirty laundry, bad information with lots of other carriers, and they'll remember it. So that can hurt you in the future if you want to go back to them for claims when you're in a better position. I mean, go back to them for quotes. If you're in a better position, they're going to remember that bad information and it really won't benefit you. So my advice is you don't have to, but stay with your carrier if they're offering you renewal terms, if your claim is open. I mean, you really won't do better in the market space and it's probably going to hurt you later on.
How do we get a copy of our loss runs?
That's a good question. So when you have that, if you want to just see them, you can see them at any time. So if you are working directly with a carrier and you're not working with an agent or a broker like me, you can just ask the carrier directly. You can communicate with whoever sends you your quote every year and say, I want a look at my loss run report. Please send it to me, and they will. It's kind of cumbersome though, if you because it can take a little bit more time, and sometimes the person who provides the quote isn't the one who does the loss run report preparation, and so you may have to email a couple people, but you can get it done. If you are working with an agent like me, you just ask your agent, I want to see my loss run report, and they'll get it for you. So, and, you know, maybe it's a good idea too to just take a look at that as you're a couple months away from your renewal, so you can evaluate what that report says. You give yourself a little time to correct any misinformation or make sure that it's been updated. If a claim was originally, you know, reserves were set at 20,000 and you know it closed at 10,000, but it says it's still open, you would want that corrected so that you're presenting accurate and the most favorable information when it comes time to renew your policy.
That is the end of our questions.
Okay, great. Well, we've ended just a few minutes early. So I'll go ahead and close out and say thank you for attending today's webinar. And We appreciate your time. We hope you'll join us again. We'll definitely start a new series called, well, we don't know what that's going to be called yet, but we're finished with malpractice insurance basics, and we're looking at doing another 5 or 6 installment series that could that will start probably in September, October. So we'll let you know about that via email, and we thank you so much for joining us.